Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I'm the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh.
All right. So today we're going to talk about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom on Netflix, and it stars Viola Davis. Is it Viola or Viola Davis? Do you know?
Viola.
Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman, among other people. And it is based on an August Wilson play from the early 1980s. And it's about a musical group headed by Ma Rainey, who's a famous blues singer in the 1920s. And they're preparing to do a recording session in Chicago. I didn't know much going into this. I didn't realize this was based on a play. I just knew it was based on a jazz band, or a jazz band played a center role in this. And so I was just excited about that aspect, along with the other aspects of Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman being in it. And so once I started watching it, I kind of realized this is a play. And then I did a little bit more research, and it's like, sure enough, it is a play. So had you heard of this play before hearing about this movie?
Shockingly, no. And that disturbs me. I went to theater school and we studied a lot of people, and I'm realizing we never studied August Wilson. We never studied him. I was thinking about this really hard, and I don't know if this is my need to remember it this way or it really did. I remember people doing monologues and scenes from the piano lesson and Fences and different things like that, but actually studying him, we did not. And I feel a little ripped off. Give me some of my money back from college, because we, as American playwrights go, August Wilson is up there. And so with Sam Shepard, with, I was going to say David O. Russell, but David Mamet, very modern at the time. David Mamet was very hot and modern at the time. And of course, Sam Shepard was too. And Sam Shepard has full 4 Pulitzers in a row. August Wilson does too, for Fences, as a matter of fact. So I just wish it had been part of my upbringing. I have never held it against anybody that I didn't know the information, but I have sort of got my nose bent out of shape figuratively when I find out things like the story of the mathematician who basically put men up into space, and I knew nothing about her. That, give me the information and then allow me to decipher whether or not I want it in my life or not. Tell me the facts, but we're in America. That's not how it worked. So hopefully with movies like this, a whole nother generation isn't cut out of the loop. That said, I can catch up. I can read. I can watch movies. And luckily, people like Viola Davis and Denzel Washington want us to know this playwright exists. So we got Fences, we got her first Oscar, and this is going to bring her 3rd Oscar nomination.
Wow. Yeah. Doubt? Did she get nominated for Doubt?
No, 4th. This is her 4th. Doubt, The Help, then Fences, which she won, and then this is going to bring her 2nd Best Actress nomination. So I'm good. I just have to say that because give me the information. Don't hold back on me. Yeah. I need it.
Yeah, this movie, it's got a lot that I really like about it. It's jazz centric. Growing up being in band, and specifically in jazz band when I was in high school and college, I really loved that. I really do love that type of music, and I loved playing that kind of music. It was a big part of my high school and college life. And so this specific type of music is more of like a transition from New Orleans style jazz, and then there's a conflict, and it's represented between the two characters of Ma Rainey and Levy. Ma Rainey played by Viola Davis and Levy played by Chadwick Boseman, and it's also represented by the two different styles of jazz that they want to play or to sing in her case.
Is it jazz or is it the blues, or is that the same thing?
So yes, the blues is, yes, it would be considered blues singing or blues music. Blues can be considered a chord change, like a chord progression, a particular style of chord changes. There are jazz songs. Well, I mean, I'm not an expert as far as the nomenclature and complete history of jazz. I do know a little bit about history, but I'm not gonna try to jazz-splain things to everyone. But there are styles of jazz. There are types of jazz that are not the blues. And the blues could be considered a precursor to what we would now consider jazz. The guy who wrote the score for this, Branford Marsalis, you could consider him a jazz musician. You could also just consider him a musician. Shoot, he was like the band leader for the Tonight Show for a while. So, I mean, yeah, it's not like he only played jazz in the Tonight Show. So those types of things, there's ways to couch this. There's ways to try to kind of like bring things together. But I would say that a lot of the music that she was singing at the time, you could go back to Louis Armstrong or King Oliver back in New Orleans, and that's where that type of music came from. Now, Ma Rainey, was from Georgia, like Columbus, Georgia, I think. But that kind of music, I mean, it all kind of comes from African American spirituals. I mean, and really, jazz is one of the only forms of art that has been created in America, in the United States. So in that way, it's a very sacred thing, and it's something that I think should be explored and should be celebrated. But I don't necessarily want to get caught up in a particular name, but it is important to see the difference between what Levy wants to do and what Ma Rainey wants to do, and their different opinions, and how that can be represented in multiple ways. And we'll get into it once we start getting into the plot of the movie.
Well, I don't want to make it a big soapbox issue, but I do want to use the right terminology, because if somebody's not getting credit for something because they changed a name or they changed a genre name, then I want to make sure that we give credit where credit is due, because that was what my whole beginning speech was about. That's just something I would like to be correct about. What matters is what was on the screen. And you're right, it's two types of blues/jazz.
Yeah, it's two different forms of very similar music, but one is considered to be a little bit more progressive or different from the mainstream at the time in 1927. And the other one is, she's considered the more established blues/jazz, whatever you want to call it, artist. And so she says multiple times in the film, I know what my audience wants. And Levy wants to kind of push against that and try to create something new. But if it weren't for someone like Ma Rainey earlier on in her career, she was coming from vaudeville. She was coming from this kind of minstrel show. Those are the things that she was performing in when she was younger, in her teens. And she was part of traveling minstrel shows in the South. And so was Bessie Smith, actually, who they bring up a couple times in the film. Both of them simultaneously had careers. Now, Bessie Smith is probably considered by more people. Bessie Smith is someone who I learned about in my jazz history class. Ma Rainey, I don't know if we really touched on her, but yeah, just having that as your main character, someone who may have been considered slighted as far as her credit is concerned, that builds in an aspect to that character that someone like Bessie Smith may not have had. So that was a nice wrinkle to add, I think, that when August Wilson chose to center his play on Ma Rainey, as opposed to someone like Bessie Smith. So you did bring up Denzel Washington, who does not star in this movie, and in fact is not in this movie at all. But he made a commitment a few years ago when he shot and produced Fences that he was going to bring more August Wilson plays to the movies. I think that that's an ambitious thing for Denzel Washington to do, and also to choose this film, which is something that it wouldn't be a film that he would feature in just because of the differences in ages of the characters, of the main characters of the film. I just thought that was an interesting choice. It felt like more of a play to me than Fences did. Fences did feel like a play, but this movie has more. Did it feel like it had more monologues in it than Fences to you? Even though there's people interacting, it seemed like there were more monologue style scenes in this film.
No, I don't think it felt like, okay, first of all, if it didn't take place in one place, meaning a studio, and if the play wasn't about recording one song, then I might have a little bit more of a hard time with the trappings of it being in one space and it being a play transposed to a movie. Does it transcend that? Not completely, not 100%. You're right. You pick up on the fact that it was probably a play very quickly, and the style of language, they don't change, which is great. And it's hard for modern day audiences to listen to somebody talking more than 2 minutes. So we go back to that discussion we've had before. Is it about our attention span, or is it that monologue in that play just doesn't work on film? I don't know. For me personally, there's nothing in this film that doesn't work. Chadwick Boseman is amazing. and we'll get there in a couple of minutes. But if it was a play about the forming of the band and they had to go from one place to the next, but it all took place in one building where everybody met to have band rehearsal, then it might seem strange to not go to those other places in the movie because you can. But this is all about recording one particular song. So the fact that it's one song, one band, one singer, one session, I'm not looking for it to go anywhere other than where it's supposed to go. That said, some of the things that the director does in the beginning of the film, George C. Wolfe, is amazing. Some of the clicks and the buzzes of the doorbells and the horns of the car and that car accident, the way that that's clipped and edited is amazing. And it kind of gets your blood flowing in a different way. And then all of a sudden you're in the basement of a recording studio. So I don't know if he did himself a disservice by doing all those bings and whistles in the beginning, which are amazing, and then slowing it down because it's in a studio basement. So does it transcend it? No, not 100%. But no, the monologues don't bother me. My ear is in tune to that.
From what I read, that dynamic opening where you see Ma Rainey singing a song in a tent in Georgia, and then it kind of like fast forwards through the development of her career and into 1927, where she's in Chicago and she's selling out theaters and performing in front of multiple groups of people, and is revered not only in tent performances, but also she's able to generate audiences to the point where they're filling theaters. That wasn't in the play. The play started off with the band waiting for her to show up. And then when she gets there, you've already got this kind of, you're primed for this character who you haven't even seen yet. And then she's dynamic and she's holding her own, especially pushing against the producer and her manager. And that is kind of like thrust upon you a third of the way through the play. But in this movie, they wanted to put Viola Davis front and center, and they wanted to get her in front of the audience sooner.
I was just thinking, well, how would it be different if he could have done flashbacks or flash forwards of Ma Rainey performing without Levy, without people, without giving too much away early on in the podcast? So it would be interesting to see, but I actually think the important part is performing and recording the songs and what she had to go through, because she says, I don't need this. I can go back down and perform. I can go back on tour. So obviously she has no problem with touring, and there's no disrespect. I'm sure there's a ton of disrespect, but not like it is with the producer or the manager or what they expect. And she has a great monologue about that. So the director, George Wolfe, could have introduced flashbacks, flash forwards, scenes of her recording the song that she recorded, singing it live, why she's singing it live. I think once you get to the studio, that's all you need to know. And the dynamic interplay between the characters is what's important. The only thing I would say about that is she's such a dynamic singer and such a dynamic performance by Viola Davis that seeing her singing at the end, I would have been okay with. You know, her presenting Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in Georgia, wherever she goes back to. That would have been nice. But that said, the choices that Viola Davis makes and the confidence and the stern attitude that she has, and I mean that as a compliment, not as anything but, when you see her in the back of the car at the end of the movie, it's the same thought process as if she's still walking through the lobby of that hotel where she's getting all those stares, which is my absolute favorite moment in the movie. I've watched it 3 or 4 times. And the way she flops that hat on her head and then gets in the car and then throws those mink stoles around her neck, or the mink stole around her neck in the middle of summer, is amazing. Just that look alone, when she flops the hat on her head, is mesmerizing. That is an Academy Award nominatable moment. So the point to all that is, I don't think that they are stifled by having it in one place. But then again, I come from a theater background, so I don't know if I'm completely objective about. Sometimes it's nice to slow down and put something in one area, one scene in one area, instead of multi-universes, you know?
Yeah. Well, so I think that George C. Wolfe, the director, did a few things, made a few choices as far as the shot composition that helped to make certain scenes more dynamic, because you do have people, and a lot of times it's either one person monologuing to a group, or a very slight back and forth between two people in a group of four, the jazz band or the blues band that is rehearsing downstairs in the basement. And you kind of start noticing some of this stuff. There's certain shots where I initially would feel like not something's off, but it's just like there's a change, there's a shift. And in particular, I saw when they decided to break the 180-degree line. Usually when you have two people in a dialogue scene, the camera has one character on the left and one character on the right. And the camera can move around in that half of a circle. If you can imagine the two characters forming a line between them, and the camera is on one side of that line in an arc, it can go anywhere on that one side, but it doesn't usually go to the other side of that arc. That's a 180-degree rule. And it's not something that, it's not a maxim that cannot be broken. It's just something that over years and years and years of filmmaking, and over just so many movies, you kind of expect something like that. But in this movie, there are definitely scenes, especially when the camera is trained on Chadwick Boseman, where they will break that rule to move him to put the camera in a different position, where he may look away from someone and the camera will be on the other side of him, and he will be looking into the camera, and the lighting will change, and he'll be lit properly on both sides and both shots. And I think that was, I'm sure it was purposeful, but I think that helped to generate more dynamism for the filmed version of this play, because you can't do that in a play. There's a definitive 180-degree rule. The audience cannot be behind the actors. So that's, I guess you could do in the round. You can do in the round, right?
Right.
Or the globe or whatever.
Yeah. I hate in the round. Yes, I hate it. I'm like, you're not supposed to be behind me. Yeah.
In general, the plays that I've seen, which I'm sure pale in comparison to the plays that you've seen, you are sitting in an audience and you're looking at a proscenium of some kind. So that is something that he can change and that can add a little bit of dynamism. And I thought that was interesting that they decided to do that.
Well, I was just thinking when you were talking, I was listening, but I was also thinking, I was multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
What would he do to bring it into a movie concept versus the theater? And I think a lot of directors, and I'm glad the screenwriter didn't do this, because it's based on August Wilson's play, but it's also Ruben Santiago Hudson screenplay. And I'm glad that they didn't choose to do this. When Ma Rainey's talking, or when Chadwick Boseman is talking about what happens to his father and his mother, they could have done flashback scenes. It could have mysteriously dissolved into smoke, and then the nighttime appears, and then you see the flicker of the fire from his house, and his father leaving as he's talking, and his mother smiling at him, and all of a sudden the door opens and the door slams, and then you see 5 white guys standing there, 6 or 8, how many it is. He could have done that, but then he would have been accused of padding the words and padding the experience. There's no need for it when you have somebody who has such the ability to tell a story. Chadwick Boseman, Viola Davis, and 2 or 3 of the other minor characters. You don't need any of that when they're so good at the description and the moment. So is it a lengthy monologue in place? Yes, but I think that's 2020. I think that's because, 2021. I think that's a modern day's audience not being able to understand that, back in Shakespeare's time, all it was monologues. And in Greek time, all it was monologues by a big chorus of people saying the same thing together. So we need to adjust. That said, I don't know what he could have done to make it, other than the performances. I don't know what he could have done. And so for me, I knew it was going to be a topic of discussion, because it has been in the past when a play has been put to a movie and it's noticeable, but it didn't inhibit my suspension of disbelief. Yeah. I can't imagine what it would be like to sit in a live theater and watch Chadwick Boseman do that monologue. Like, I would come out of my skin. So I'm kind of glad I have that separation of the computer screen and Netflix and being able to turn it on and off, because I could not have handled it if that was live. I would have been a mental case in the best way.
I think one benefit of not cutting to a visual representation of some of the stories that are told is you get to see the transition in the character that the actor makes from one emotion to another. And by seeing that, they don't necessarily cut too much. They cut every once in a while, but they don't cut too much during some of those, like those longer monologues, whether it's, I mean, there's a monologue later on that references God by one of the characters, and there's a lot of emotion, but there's not a lot of cutting. There's not a lot of jip back and forth. Let's find a different angle, any of that stuff. It's just letting it play out like it would in a play. So that makes a lot of sense. And also, same thing with Viola Davis. There are certain scenes where she has such, especially when she's interacting with the producer and her manager, where she's so contained in her emotion. Like she's just flat, not flat in a bad way, but she's just like a coiled spring, and she's holding it and holding it. And then at some point it just bursts. She cannot let it go past this particular point. Like she's been able to just let it ride and get through it just as long as, you know, the basic stuff happens. And then they can't buy her a Coke, and she's like, well, okay, fine, I'll buy myself a Coke. Seeing that character go through that multiple times in this film, it's a clinic in how it can be done.
I'm going over in my head the play/movie, and he does do that. George C. Wolfe does do that during Toledo's monologue about black people being leftovers when he's playing the piano, and he flashes on those kind of still shots of people. And he does it in the beginning of the film when you're going through kind of a small little history of the places where, and that I've never seen that done before, where there's an actual live human being in the shot of a black and white photograph, and you don't notice did you notice that in the beginning of the film? When I think it's at the very beginning, it's at the credits, and then all of a sudden the person kind of turns and looks at the camera, and you're like, whoa, that was a real person. I've never really seen it done like that. I've seen that effect before, but I've never really seen it done. It was done extremely well, and it was very affecting. But he does do that during Glenn Turman's speech about black people being leftovers. And I thought that was a very effective way to cut away from just a straight on monologue. But that was in particular to what Toledo was speaking about. And I think George C. Wolfe, from my point of view, wanted to show a physical representation of these people who have been left over. And it was beautiful. That one shot of the young lady in the window is beautiful. And it's the same kind of shot he does in that hotel lobby where those people are still and the camera passes them, but they don't really move. I love that. It's so theatrical, but it works on film so well. I don't know if there's any other part in the film that would have been appropriate for. So where he could break out and do that, I think he handled that extremely well.
Yeah. Before we start talking about spoilers, I think that the music is a huge part of this film, and we get to see August Wilson kind of lay out certain of his views through different characters in different ways about how power dynamics post Civil War, post black people trying to get out of the Jim Crow South, moving up north, but still coming across barriers to try to be equal, and that being represented in through different characters. But then also the music is kind of like undergirding all of that, and the blues themselves, like we said, coming from African American spirituals and being a representation of, or at least a way to live through what I could only imagine would be difficult times for the families of these African Americans, and that being a representation of that is there throughout the whole time. And the Toledo monologue about leftovers is, you're right, it's kind of underscored by that music. Now, I think there was some music in the play, but Denzel Washington and I'm guessing George C. Wolfe brought in Branford Marsalis, who is a pretty famous musician, to do the score for this film. And I've been listening to the score, and it's a really cool score. And it's got, he wrote and modified. I mean, obviously, Ma Rainey's Black Bonnet is an established song that has been recorded and all that, but he's kind of modified it in a few different ways. And he also brought in someone to do most of Ma Rainey's vocal performance, because while Viola Davis does have one scene in there where she does kind of sing a little bit, they needed someone who was very similar to what Ma Rainey sounded like, and he found a performer in Maxilyn Lewis to do those performances, and she was amazing just to be able to embody that kind of sound. And I thought that was great. the actors themselves even tried to replicate what it would look like to play the music, even though they weren't technically playing the music while they were on screen. They still put in the time to try to learn what it would look like to play properly, which is which I definitely respect a lot, because you can really tell when somebody's just not even, especially like drummers, which they didn't really have to deal with in this, but actors look horrible when they don't know what they're doing when playing drums. So a lot of respect to those guys for putting in the time to learn how to do that stuff.
Want to hear a little fun fact? Branford Marsalis' father, Ellis, taught at VCU.
Oh, cool.
When I went to school. Yeah, when I went to school, I have had quite a few conversations with that man, not knowing anything about him, not knowing anything about his son. It was before his, totally had lunch with him a couple of times, just sitting on the stairs of the Performing Arts Center. Super nice, gentle man.
So was he like an artist in
nice.
residence, or what was he? Like what?
I was just looking that up. I can't find where it says. I don't know if he was doing just I don't know what he was doing at VCU, but it was him. Wow. And I only learned that later on because I saw Bring On the Night, which is the documentary film of Sting's concert tour, and Branford Marsalis. And I just thought that name sounds so familiar to me. And so I was asking about Branford Marsalis, blah, blah, blah. And I was looking him up, and this was before Google and Wikipedia. And somebody was like, his father taught at VCU when we went there. And I was like, wait, Ellis Marsalis? Yeah. I was like, no way. Now, there were very few conversations, not many, but he was just so nice. And I was like, hey, cool. Your son's cool and you're cool. And thank you for being a cool person. It just lights me up knowing just what a genuine human being people are sometimes. And that's what we need in this world, regardless of having some of the most famous musician sons in the world or family in the world. He was a genuine human being to me. He was.
I mean, that's an amazing family. Ellis Marsalis, the dad, is a piano player. Branford Marsalis is a saxophone player. His son, he also has another son, Wynton Marsalis, who's potentially the most famous of the Marsalises, that plays trumpet. And I think that another one of Ellis's sons, Jason Marsalis, is a drummer. So I mean, it's musicians all the way down. So that'd be a really cool guy to talk to, and an amazing family to be a part of too, I'm sure. So that's really cool. All right, well, let's get into some spoilers. I think we need to kind of dig into the plot a little bit more and talk about some of these performances. And I want to get your opinion on, I mean, we didn't really say it, but Chadwick Boseman, this is his last on-screen performance before dying of pancreatic cancer last year. So
they're going to be nominated for everything.
Okay, so do you think that Chadwick Boseman could potentially win for this?
Yes, I do, but he's not my pick.
Well, no, I mean, and I
hate to say it so quickly, but he's not my pick.
I felt like Viola Davis's performance, if we're trying to like do like a horse race here, and maybe it's the character, I don't know. It's got to be a confluence of character plus performance that gets you to where people are like, oh my God, they're going to win everything. But I think that Viola Davis's performance plus the character opportunities that she had, those things came together very nicely. And I think Chadwick Boseman, I feel like he did what was asked of him, which you can't fault him for that. But I don't know. Do you think that the Oscars should be doing something to where they are saying like you're hitting all of the beats, or you're performing each of these elements of this character in a particular way that with the content that you were given, you did it the best that anyone could have done? Versus you weren't given a lot. Could someone who doesn't have as meaty of a role still win legitimately the best actor or best actress Oscar? And would you be cool with that? Versus someone who has just kind of like a teed up role that's just nice and meaty and juicy, and they can just take a big bite out of it. Could you foresee something like that? A poor written character played so well by an actor winning over a better written character played adequately.
That's interesting that you're bringing that up, because I just read an article about how that used to be like that in Hollywood, but it's no longer like that. You have to be in a great quality film, and sometimes that happens in reverse. They were using, and this is their example, not mine, Rachel McAdams' performance in Spotlight. Did she get ushered into a Best Supporting Actress nomination because she was in the Best Picture of the Year nominee? Was that performance Oscar caliber? And can people like Marissa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny, which we've talked about before, might not be somebody's Shakespeare, But can a character who is underwritten or isn't in the best movie, can they win the Oscar? The answer is yes. I mean, because it's happened before. I don't know if one is easier or harder because acting is so difficult for me that it all seems difficult no matter how you look at it. So I think I saw an interview with Chris Messina, who said he has to work extremely hard just to be okay. He's an okay actor in Sharp Objects, and he has to work extremely hard just to be okay. I can really relate to that. I just can really relate to it. I have to do really hard study in order to just be adequate. And that's not a cut down on me. That's not me putting myself down. I just feel that way. Like I have to work super, 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 super hard to be adequate. That said, I don't think that's how I look at the Oscars. So I don't really think I can look at it that way. It's about a feeling for me, how I feel when I'm watching something. And there is an intangible feeling that happens when I see Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. Is that this meaty role in this Shakespearean-esque movie with all these monologues? No, it's not. But what she did in that movie made me believe she was doing that in real life. And that got ripped apart critically, but it won Best Original Screenplay and it won her Oscar, and it was nominated for Best Picture. So the three things that most people didn't like about it won Oscars. So as for what Chadwick, I keep saying Chaswick, don't I? Jesus God, that's just like last week I said Memento instead of Memento. I said, remember when I said Goodfellows instead of Goodfellas? And I also said formal. Themysciran instead of Themyscira. And then I was listening to the podcast last week and I was like, okay, I'm doing good. Memento. Wait a second. Did I just say Memento?
It's a word.
Like candy? Yeah, I know, but it's not the word we wanted. Memento is the word of the movie. Yeah. So do I think that Chadwick Boseman has a meatier role so people are looking at it differently? Sure. But what he does with it is impressive. But to me, I was not pulled in by him 100%. Delroy Lindo, I was pulled in by. I thought what Delroy Lindo had to go through and make me believe he had to go through. Yeah, Defy Bloods. And strangely enough, Chadwick Boseman is being considered for Best Supporting Actor for Defy Bloods. And I have no problem with that. But I think the other guy deserves the nomination. I can't remember his name right off the bat. We can talk about that during the Oscar podcast. So I think it's subjective. I think it has to do with the basic fact of, do we really have a way of gauging a performance as better than somebody else's? I forget who said this. It might have been Dustin Hoffman. Don't quote me on that. He said if all 5 of the actors were doing Hamlet, then we could gauge whose Hamlet was better for us. But you're talking about a father who's divorcing his wife and having to take care of a child, a single parent thing. And you're talking about somebody who is a blues trumpet player who was traumatically developed into a man who had a chip on his shoulder, who does not good things later on. So I don't know if you can subjectively say so-and-so is better than others. Somebody said when Amy Adams was nominated for The Master, and don't get me wrong, these conversations are not conversations I interject anything in, because I would never say anything like this. But this person is a non-theater person who just goes to the movies and loves Paul Thomas Anderson and loves Amy Adams. But this is what she said. She said, Amy Adams in The Master, what did she do other than her job? She's an actress and she performed a role in a movie. What did she do that garnished her another Oscar nomination? I don't react to those statements because I can't say I could ever say anything about Amy Adams that's not great. But what she did was put Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix in their place in one scene, and did it by not raising her voice above this level. To me, that's difficult. To me, that's Oscar nominatable. But to somebody else, it's just the actress doing her job. So that all said, for me, it's about a feeling. Yeah. It's about what I felt when I saw Whoopi Goldberg say goodbye to Patrick Swayze in Ghost. And it tears me up just thinking about how she handled that moment. It's so beautiful. And there are comedic moments. that light up Marissa Tomei's whole performance in My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
Vinny, well, maybe it was a bad time to bring it up. When she says that at the end of the "my biological clock is ticking" speech, that to me, that timing and cadence is only her at that moment in that scene at that time. Take 5 other actresses and see what they would do with it. Only Marissa Tomei could turn that into an Oscar-winning performance. That's why she won the Oscar. So I don't know if any of that makes sense.
No,
But
it does.
I know where you're going with this.
What I wouldn't want to happen, and I mean, you know, I don't really have a dog in the fight, but what I wouldn't want to happen is I wouldn't want to be like, this is his last performance. We need to give him all of the things. You know, I would think that any actor would want you to evaluate their career and their performances and not necessarily just be like, oh, well, you know, he passed away. Let's give him this thing. That's not really honoring the actor. But I mean, I think that the good thing is that Denzel Washington, they did a really good, actually, behind the scenes history of Ma Rainey, and then also the kind of from page to screen type of a thing where they talked about how the film was made. And they did talk about Chadwick Boseman's passing, and Denzel Washington said, you know, I miss him and I love him, and on film we will always have him. And I think that's a big compliment, and it's also just a reality, and that is the big takeaway, I think. And does he need an Academy Award just because he passed away and this is his last film? No, I don't think so. It's one thing to evaluate it dispassionately, and it's another thing to try to just shoehorn something in. So, and I hope that whoever's doing the voting is able to separate the situation from the performance.
Well, I would say that might be an interesting discussion, period. But I would say it would be even more interesting if nobody had been nominated who had passed away and didn't win. You know what I mean? Like if there was a precedence for losing or winning because you passed away. Now, there have been people who have passed away and won. Peter Finch from Network, Heath Ledger. So the question is, was Heath Ledger and or Peter Finch deserving of the Oscar for their performance? And my answer is yes. And I was waiting tables back when Heath Ledger won, and I worked an afternoon, and there was a comic book convention at the hotel across the street. And a couple guys came in. You could tell that they were at the comic book convention. I realized that they were having a conversation about the comic book convention. And they pulled me into the conversation. And they go, let me ask you a question. Did you see Dark Knight? I said, of course I did. Do you think Heath Ledger deserved the Oscar? I said, when he put that pencil on the table and said, let me do a magic trick. And he banged that guy's head into the pencil, and the pencil disappeared. And I said, yep, right then and there, I thought he could win an Oscar for this. And the other guy goes, I think he won just because he died. And I said, well, I guess you'll never know, but I disagree with that because the performance is on the screen. I think Heath Ledger would have been nominated, and I think Heath Ledger would have been the front runner, and I think he would have won because he became something we weren't expecting him to do. He reinvented the Joker for us. He is the Joker for 2 generations now. And it's no big monologue, and it's a great movie. So you can't really fault the script. And it's not this like emotionally taut, monologue driven performance. It's a true character etched out. And to me, that's harder to do. So if I thought that Chadwick Boseman's performance wasn't on the screen, I would be right there with you discussing it deeper, that we cannot just say, we miss this guy.
Let's give him a statue.
Force of nature. Let's give him a statue. That said, he's not my pick. So I'm not emotionally connected to him for a lot of different reasons because he's just not my pick yet. I mean, so far, he's just not. But if he does win, it will not resonate as just because he passed away. That said, I should be famous for saying that said, I do believe his performance in The Five Bloods might be falling into that phenomenon that people are predicting him to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor because he has passed away. But see, I don't think that's his fault or his performance's fault anyway. I think because he passed away, people are allowing that performance to resonate differently than when they first saw the film, because people have talked about him being nominated for supporting actor. And I think we did too. I think we mentioned that he's a standout. There's a Messiah-esque quality to his performance in the best possible way. So I just think it's sad that maybe if Chadwick Boseman had not died, we would never be having this conversation, obviously. And I still think he would be getting the nomination. I don't know if he would win, but the bigger question for me is Viola Davis a lead or a supporting character. People have gone back and forth with that.
Well, I mean,
They're gonna put her in the lead
they
character
should. I think that
category.
they should. It's a big role. It is a big role. I think that you can't do the film. Your rubric is, can you do the film without this person? You can't do the film without Ma Rainey.
No, not at all. And I also think that there's precedence for a person's presence not equaling a lot of screen time, but equaling a lead performance because of their presence. Nicole Kidman, The Hours, Anthony Hopkins is 23 minutes in Silence of the Lambs, but he's a lead character. You just can't deny it.
I think that's about as long as Viola Davis is in this film, is 20 something minutes, 26 minutes and 41 seconds. So that's how long she's in the movie. But once again, you can't not have her. I wanted to bring up a couple of the supporting actors. Glenn Turman, who plays Toledo. I've just seen him in so many
great.
things. And he's so good in all of them. Just this year, seeing him in Fargo, and then he was also in The Way Back. He was in Super 8 back in like 2008. He was the guy in the truck that crashed.
Is he the bartender in The Way Back, or his friend? His friend that he drinks with.
Well, no, he's Doc.
Oh, yeah, the bartender.
Yeah, and then so he also worked with Viola Davis in How to Get Away with Murder, which I never watched, but I mean, it's interesting that connection there. And so he's been in a bunch of different things, and every time I see him, I'm like, I know that guy. But this definitely made me put a face to a name, or a name to a face.
And I will say this, if he was on the list for Best Supporting Actor, I would be more lit up about that than Chadwick Boseman for Da 5 Bloods, because that speech about the leftovers is amazing. And his moment at the end is amazing. He's amazing in it. Like, some of his reaction shots are so great. So I would like to see him nominated for Best Supporting Actor. That would be a nice surprise.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I think the first time I saw him was in The Wire. He plays the mayor, which is, of course, he's corrupt and all that. And then also Coleman Domingo plays Cutler, the lead organizer of the band and representative of the band to Ma Rainey. And I've seen him in a couple of different things, but he was in Fear the Walking Dead most recently. And he's been in a few different films, Lincoln and Selma and the Twilight Zone episode, which I don't think I saw. I don't think I've seen the new season. But weirdly enough, he is in a movie called Zola, which was supposed to come out last year, that also stars Taylor Page, who plays the girlfriend of Ma Rainey in this film. And it also stars our friend Riley Keough.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like IMDb says it's supposed to come out June 30th, 2021. So maybe they moved it back to festival season for this year. So I'm sure we'll get to see it at some point. I think that it played at Sundance, but it's based on a Twitter thread, which it's 2021. Now we have movies that are based on Twitter threads. So yeah, I mean, anything that Riley Keough wants to do, I'm interested, because obviously it was interesting enough for her to want to do it. So yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool intersection there of Coleman Domingo and Taylor Page in two separate films within a year of each other.
Taylor Page, she's a standout. There's something about her. I mean, she's beautiful, but just the way she walks up to the mic and starts doing that kind of like, bebop and stuff
dance
that she's doing. She's pretending the flapper dance. She's trying to sing, and then because I've seen this movie twice, by the way. And when Ma Rainey snaps at her and she turns around and she's instantaneously scared to death, but at the same time respectful, that's hard to do. You have to instinctually know what you're doing. So yeah, they're all standouts. I just think that if you're talking about great acting on film, you can go right to this movie. And you cannot dispute it. It's just sharp, and you can tell they're connected, and their moment-to-moment work is brilliant, and the acting is impeccable.
Yeah, I think Taylor Page specifically, she's able to play kind of naivete, but then also still be worldly, understand what her position is in the dynamic of her and Ma Rainey, and understand what is offered to her by Levy and be accepting of their interaction. And it seems like she's got it all figured out, but she's kind of not playing dumb, but playing cute, I guess. And she knows that can get her anywhere. It's also interesting when you look at that in the same way of how Ma Rainey interacts with the producer and her manager, where she knows she has the power. The only reason why they are putting up, quote unquote, putting up with her is because of her ability to make them money. And so she is putting them in a place and giving them some kind of a small taste of what Black people were feeling in general at that point in time, even in the North, in Chicago, of like, yeah, we're all in the same room together. Yeah, we're all in this together, but we're at a certain level above you, type of a thing. And so she was able to control situations because she had all the power in that situation, in the recording studio, and they knew that, and she knew that, and she was gonna, at the very least, show them what it feels like, I think.
What's interesting about that for me is that that is August Wilson's way of letting us know that a character was held down by her circumstances, but because she had a talent and because she had an ability that made somebody else money, she didn't bow down to them. She knew she could control the situation because without her voice on that recording, is what she says, they're going to do whatever I want them to do until I put that down. And just like at the end, and the thing that Viola Davis does that's so amazing is that kind of like look out the bottom of her eye thing that she does. She's kind of looking at you, but not. It's very, very, very strong. It's a very strong choice. It's kind of like side-eyed, but front ways. And when she was like, at the very end, close to the very end, when she says, the only thing you've done is forgot that I didn't sign those papers. I didn't sign the release. So good luck with that. And that is actually a parallel to what Chadwick Boseman is going through, because he just hands the songs that he writes, he just hands them to that producer guy, never asks about compensation, nothing. And there's a whole deal about how Chadwick Boseman is affected by white people when they walk in the room. And then you find out that that is deeper than what it is based on that story that he tells. So Chadwick Boseman is a man of his circumstances who hasn't learned that he needs to hold on to that sheet music until he gets paid. He needs to hold on to that sheet music until that guy says, I'm going to produce your song, because at the very end of the film, you realize he does produce his song and a white person sings it and a white band does it, which is historically what has happened to a lot of Black performers. They will do their thing and then a white person will come along and steal it and make it their own and pretend like they never existed to begin with. It's happened time and time and time again. So the fact that a woman in the late 20s could actually know she could control the situation by her talent is a brilliant statement about society at the time, without pounding you over the head with that.
Yeah, but the interesting part about that is that, yes, she does wield that power, but ultimately she does sign that paper and she gets $200. And Sylvester, her nephew, gets $25. And so that's all she gets total for the whole thing. Like, she's never going to get one more penny for that. And Paramount or Columbia Records or whoever it is, they don't really have a name to I think Paramount is who recorded Ma Rainey historically, but they can still make money on her recordings because they own the recording. They own the physical master of the recording. And so they can just keep printing and keep making money on it.
But that said, that's true. And that's happened even today. Not to downplay that, but that does happen in the record business from what you hear. But at the end of it, she says, I don't have to record my records here. I can record them anywhere I want. So next time, get me my effing Coke before and the way she says Coca-Cola. The way she says that is brilliant. I need my Coca-Cola. Where is it?
Well, she's a Georgia girl, so, you know.
Yeah. And the way that you can understand every word that's coming out of her mouth, but the way it's clipped together, brilliant. But at the end, she does have a leg up, even though you're right. She gets $200 and that's it. But she never has to return to that studio. So she does have minuscule amount of power continuously. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Another thing I loved was the representation of the door in the rehearsal space, and just the fact that he is not able to open the door. He didn't even realize that the door was there before. And that just being a direct relationship to migration of African Americans from the South to the North, not realizing that there was an opportunity. They get to a certain place where they see an opportunity. They've been told that there's an opportunity, and then the barrier that is there, not allowing them to get through. And I think that in the play, the door never opened. But in the film, they decided, I don't know if a screenwriter or if it was the director, but decided that he will be able to burst through that door, but there's nothing on the other side of it. It's just a blank wall. It's just empty. And
4 walls without the ability to rise above it.
yep, so
he can't,
he's trapped.
he can't
Yeah.
climb that. Yeah, exactly. So I actually thought that that was a symbol for the way society treats Black people. That
Mhm.
sure, here's your opportunity, but once you break through this glass ceiling or this door, there's still 4 other solid walls on the other side. So really the opportunity is only a facade. Once you break through, there's nowhere else for you to go. So you can break through the door and you can be on somebody's same level, but once you get there, really, is it the same level? No, it means that you're just breaking through to 4 other walls. So when he breaks through that the first time you see the movie, you're like, damn.
You're just hoping for some.
Damn.
You're hoping for something. You're hoping for like an ice cream shop to be back there or something. But no hope there. And then that spurns him into his monologue on God and just kind of like attacking God or what he perceives as the lack thereof. I got a lot from the end as far as like what it seems like August Wilson is saying is that his interaction at the end with the producer and then his powerlessness with the producer, where the power dynamic is so shifted one way, he doesn't feel like he can retaliate in any way. And then he goes back into his community, which is his jazz group, Ma Rainey's band, and is just malicious to Toledo to the point of killing him. And that just, it seems like what August Wilson was saying was that there's Black on Black violence and one potential, it's not an explanation and it's not an excuse. It's neither of those two things, but one potential link could be the powerlessness felt when fighting against a dynamic, a preset dynamic. And the only interactions or the only friction may be able to be felt is between people of the same group. And it doesn't make sense intellectually, I don't think. I mean, it's like, why would you hurt someone who you're on stage with all the time, every night? Why would you hurt someone who you know personally? Why would you hurt someone who is integral to your community? But that's exactly what happens. And I don't know what the specific explanation is, but I could see a parallel with that and Black on Black crime. So,
well, you hurt the ones you love. You could go back to that stereotypical and that cliche. But at the same time, when you cannot act out towards one person and then somebody does something as simple as scuffs your shoes again, by the way, it's the second time he did it. He doesn't have a way of venting that anger. He did not get satisfaction in what his father did to revenge his mother's situation. Sort of, if you want to consider revenge a good thing, when you don't get to complete your feelings, when those feelings come back up again, I think you're going to take them out on whoever's in front of you. And I think that's why he loses rationale about this is a person that he plays with. This is a person that he's connected with, because you're a musician. And I think I can compare it to acting. When you have something going on with somebody on stage and that music is going and you're connected to that person, you are connected to that person. That doesn't stop you from disliking the person in real life. Trust me. It doesn't stop you from not liking their peccadillos and not putting up with their stinky socks, the dressing room. But if you're constantly bombarded by a director who obviously believed in you to cast you, but they're giving you a hard time the whole entire time, a person who hasn't gone through the trauma that Chadwick Boseman has gone through might be able to just brush that off. He might be able to just go, okay, that director's just acting like an a-hole. Another person who's traumatized from things in their life who haven't had a chance to vent that might go back to the dressing room and take it out on Stinky Feet guy.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of those moments, and I think he's young, and although he's in his 30s, but he's young and he's hot-footed, literally and figuratively. And I think he's not thinking. The anger he must have felt towards the producer obviously comes out in that scene. And you can't hurt somebody who has the power, so you hurt somebody that you think is less than you, because he does think he's less than him because of his shoes.
Yeah.
He has the clawed hoppers.
Yeah.
And I don't mean less as a human being, just not as sophisticated or not as cool and not as bluesy and jazzy. And hip and happening because he doesn't have $11 shoes, which is a week's worth of pay.
But I think the other thing to keep in mind is that, like, if he's going to kill somebody and he decides to kill a white record producer over killing the black piano player for a band, I mean, those things are completely different as far as what kind of ire he would get from the Chicago community at large. It would be a completely different thing if he were to kill this white business owner producer thing versus a journeyman piano player that's part of a band that comes into town every once in a while.
And that's a whole nother play.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother movie. Yeah. I don't think he's thinking about it, though. I'm saying I don't think Levy is thinking at that moment. He's reacting emotionally. So I don't think he's thinking, oh, the ramifications of killing this white guy is different than the ramifications of killing my black friend.
But that's probably built in to his being.
Oh, yeah. You got a point. Because he does react differently when the white guy walks in the room. The tone and cadence to his voice is different. And that's one reason why Chadwick Boseman's performance is so stunning, is that, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with how August Wilson wrote it too. The cadence and everything about how he acts when Ma Rainey's manager and or the producer walk in the room is completely different. So you're right. It's probably ingrained in him to show, finger quotes, respect to the white guy versus being able to just let it go. You're right. Yeah, you got a good point. That's a deep thought that you put out there. That's so brilliant that an art form about a blues band is more about a societal issue. It's deeper than just about that. So great.
It makes me interested in the other plays in that Pittsburgh cycle. You talked about the piano lesson. I don't really know anything about that, but I've seen that, just in doing the small amount of research that I've done for this film. But yeah, it is interesting. So did you see on Netflix that they've got as a supplementary link to this, there's a whole kind of show about August Wilson monologue performance feature where young performers are able to compete in a monologue performance competition. Is that what are they called those?
Yeah, I saw something about that, but I didn't have a chance to delve into it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Just the fact that they're able to kind of feature a particular playwright and then see how different performers can bring out different aspects of those things. I didn't even know that those monologue competitions happened.
I didn't know it either. I could spend my life at those competitions. If they're, and it's funny because I didn't even know that existed. I mean, I saw it, but I, wouldn't have any like conscious remembrance of seeing it. But that's basically what I said in the beginning of the podcast, that we would do monologues and scenes from plays, but I don't know if we were ever taught about these playwrights. But I guess, to be fair, that's the same thing we did with David Mamet and Sam Shepard and that kind of stuff. I guess we did monologues and scenes from those, and then I just did a deep dive into those people's existence, if you will. So yeah, oh my God, I would never leave. I would pitch a tent in the back of the theater, get a few hours of sleep and get up and keep watching. Are you kidding me? I would love it, especially if it was the same monologue from different actors, like we were saying about 5 actors doing Hamlet, and then figuring out who did it the best for you, and that's why you would vote for them for the Oscars. Oh my God. You know what? I was just thinking, I'm going to spend the rest of my evening, I'm reading a great book, and I'm also watching Schitt's Creek. So I have a lot to keep me occupied. But now I think I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to think about the theme and the social economic pressures that were on people back in those days that made them do the things that they did. When you were talking about black on black crimes, I'm going to do nothing but focus on that. I'll probably end up watching the last part of the movie again just to see what you're saying and seeing if it's really influenced it, which it obviously has because it's there. And then tomorrow I'll probably wake up and watch all those monologues.
Very cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. All right. So you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. You can tweet us at actorengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast, and we'll see you next time.